Hello, this is Heather Gates, and I welcome you to the Stand in the And podcast, where we have honest conversations about the messy complexity of the human experience, where we get stuck, and how we find forward in the and of it all where many things are true at once. This podcast is designed especially for those of us who want to make things more beautiful and better for everyone, and sometimes need reminding that we are human too. I'm so glad you're here. And start it just so it's going with us.
Do you listen to Radiolab on NPR?
No.
Oh.
Do you feel like you're on Radiolab?
No, well, just for a second, because it's the opening is always a recording of two of the guys. Okay, all right,
Okay.
all right.
Go. When every now and then we will include some of the pre-start banter.
Okay, yeah, like bloopers almost.
Yeah, it is like bloopers of going, we should start this, we should stop talking. Wait, what? Is there cake? It's Ashley's birthday. So sometimes.
Wait, the UPS guy's here.
Well, that one happened right in the middle of an episode. So we do try to keep it. We try to keep everything in, and it also is helpful for me to remember this is not live radio.
Right. Yes, we can always edit.
We can always take something out or, whatever. And we'll aim for it to be about an hour.
Okay, sure.
And that's just on me to keep tabs of what.
Okay. The room, I think, is booked
what
at 3,
time it is.
so
yeah, who knows?
Someone else may
knock on the door and tell us it's time to go.
Exactly right. Yeah.
So I think, we have a general plan for this.
Yeah.
But I really am fine if you are with. We'll just see where the
absolutely winging it is
feel where the riff of this
I love it
goes, because I do think a lot of what we're just talking about is important.
Yeah. Okay.
So much
interesting. Hopefully.
Yeah. Just as you can tell already, I'm infinitely curious about this and talking about it probably sometimes accurately-ish.
Yeah.
So I'm just grateful to have you.
Yeah. By the way, so much of what we have, if you want to say discovered or cemented or established through science, is what we've all known
intuitively
for eons.
Well, and that's, to me,
we have to convince ourselves.
Well, but back when I talk about what is human intelligence.
Yeah. Yes.
There's something there to me that's more than patterns.
Yeah. One of the more interesting kind of shifts in thinking about human intelligence for me, Heather, has been this idea that it's existed in psychology for some time, but it was brought to my attention most recently through Michael Pollan's work on psychedelics and basically consciousness. But there's this phenomenon where people, oftentimes through psychedelic trips, will experience this connectedness with something that's far greater than they are. And so one of the ways that at least Pollan has articulated this is perhaps our brains are not so much generators of content, but receivers. And the psychedelics, which all very interestingly act on the same receptor for serotonin, the 2A receptor, they may be changing the tuning frequency of our brains and giving us, for those moments, access to information that's out there, but we just simply, our brains aren't tuned into it broadly, and every individual's brain is tuned in differently. This is also in Dan Brown's latest book. There's an element of that I really liked. I may be giving Dan Brown and Michael Pollan both too much credit, but I've enjoyed it, and I really think they both do such a kind of really powerful job of weaving science into a story, a narrative that's really compelling. At least I find them incredibly compelling. But this idea that maybe our intelligence is more about the opportunity to either consciously or through some other means be willing to change the tuning frequency of our brains, to listen to something, to receive something else.
Well, and I'm gonna intro this podcast, and we're gonna start it in a second.
This is, by the way, not a psychedelic
this is not
advertisement.
But I'm also learning more about quantum. We talked a little bit about quantum computing earlier, and just all that there is to be delved into. But let me pause this, because I do need to officially start the podcast.
Sure. Let's do it.
And Ashley, feel free to use any of that that you feel like it's needed. But I do want to, just take a breath. I don't know what that's doing to my brain.
Good thing. Oxygen is definitely something we want to have.
Okay, good. Welcome back to the podcast, y'all. Where today I'm standing in the and as a UNC graduate on the campus of Duke
Oh,
University
boy.
with my new friend, Dr. Ahmad Hariri.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Oh,
much.
it's my pleasure, Heather. I'm so glad to be here with you and in person. I
In
think it's awesome.
person
It's awesome.
in this who even
Yeah,
knew
yeah.
amazing
And
little
you'll make it.
podcast
All this
studio.
Duke blue, don't worry.
Yeah,
It's
no,
not
I
gonna
like
hurt
blue
you.
generally. I just needed to acknowledge for all of my Tar
Yes,
Heel
fair enough,
colleagues
fair enough.
that I understand the and that I
Yeah,
find myself in today.
yeah.
Our first podcast on the road.
Oh, amazing. I
So
love
this
it.
is our
I
thank you for being part of the
I
experiment.
I am glad to be a part of it. I hope it ends up being the first of many,
I hope so.
an experiment that we can learn from.
That is the point of experimentation,
You got
right?
it,
Is
you
it
got
not?
it. Yeah.
So before we get into it too far, I do want to give you a chance,
Yeah,
an invitation to introduce yourself.
okay,
Give to
sure.
even if nothing else gives context to some of the remarks that you're going to share today. But how do you want to
Yeah.
introduce yourself? Whatever feels important to you.
Okay, that's great. So my name is Ahmad Hariri. I am a professor of psychology and neuroscience here at Duke, where I've been since 2009. And I'm a neuroscientist by training. So I have a PhD in neuroscience. And for my entire career, I have been interested in trying to identify how differences in our brains really shape differences in our behavior.
Mm,
Early on, my work focused on brain structures and brain circuits that help generate our emotional experiences and help us learn about danger and threat. And that kind of evolved into other brain circuits that help us uh, recognize and pursue rewards and positive experiences. And then ultimately, the circuitry that helps us manage all of the different pulls and draws on our attention, the circuits that really are there to help us make the right decisions at the right time. And so to do that, I've used functional MRI as well as structural MRI, so a non-invasive way to look at the brain at
yeah.
work. Um, More recently, I would say over the past 10 years, my own program of research has shifted towards aging, understanding
Mm,
how the brain is aging and whether or not the brain can tell us something decades before someone, for example, in their later life develops cognitive decline or dementia. We want to know if there are signs in the brain much earlier that we can capitalize on to help put those at-risk individuals on trajectories of better health. And so that's what I do in the lab with a team of amazing colleagues and trainees and other scientists. And then I have the privilege of teaching two classes here at Duke. I think the first is the one that maybe brought us together here
yeah.
today. It's called "Looking Inside the Disordered Brain." And so in that class, I try and lay out the anatomy of three what I consider foundational circuits in our brains that keep bad things from happening, keep us safe, make good things happen. So helping us thrive, and then executing control. And so those are three circuits. I talk about their anatomy and how that anatomy and how information processing through these circuits can emerge as fear or um, happiness or things like memory and decision making and cognition. And then we transition to how disruptions within these circuits may contribute to the symptoms of mental illness. So, depression, anxiety, even psychosis and thought disorders.
We're going to get into circuits here in
Yes,
a minute,
yes,
and I'm
yes.
hopeful that we're going to talk about the and of some of them,
Yeah,
not just the or of
no,
them.
exactly. Yes.
But
I've been presenting it as I do in
yeah,
class as three circuits,
yeah.
but in reality, they're constantly interacting.
Okay, so
Right.
now anybody who has been tracking this podcast
Yeah.
knows that as we started the podcast, I put out a question on LinkedIn to
Okay.
say, I want to talk to a neuroscientist or a neuroanatomist
Yeah.
about how we are or aren't
Yeah.
wired
Yeah.
for and. So I'm just
Yeah.
having a moment right
Yeah, yeah, it's
now.
all come full circle.
We did it. I found a person. And as life goes, it's one person connects to another person that
Yeah,
connects me to you.
exactly. The connections are so cool.
That's so
Yeah,
cool. And, human intelligence or whatever, we
yeah,
know connection is at the heart of most all of it.
absolutely.
And it just feels so lovely
Yeah,
to to be here, and I'm grateful
Yeah.
that you are up for not only being part of the experiment today, but so often on the podcast, I'm talking to people who I've worked with a long time, or
Right.
are happy to help me get this started. So to be basically a stranger
Yeah.
to me,
Yeah.
um, and we did have a first conversation
We
about
did.
this and talked forever. And I said,
Yeah.
please, can we just get on the microphone and
Yeah.
talk neuroscience to my audience? Because
Anytime.
as you know, I get very excited
Yeah.
about this topic. And I love what you said, even in your introduction, of this quest almost to understand how the brain impacts
Yeah.
what we're up to. So,
Yeah.
really functional application of how it shapes the human experience.
Right. Right.
Before we get too deep into science,
Yeah.
it is a tradition on the podcast
Oh
for us
boy.
to honor our own humanity
Okay. Okay.
first.
Great.
You, although brilliant neuroscientist, also are a human on the
I
planet.
am
So
indeed.
I'm going to ask you, as
Okay.
you are just humaning today,
Okay.
what and you're standing in,
Yes.
as in what maybe many things feel true to you at the same time. I'm happy to go first because I will also participate unless
Okay.
you already know what you want to
I
say.
would love for you to go
Okay,
first, just so I
just to
have an
get you a
idea of.
gist.
Yeah.
So what I'm
Exactly.
going to say is the and that I'm standing in today,
Yeah.
I was going to say on a Monday, but it is not a Monday. So maybe that tells you.
Yes. Feels like one. Huh? Hey, at least it's not Wednesday.
All right. I right now in life, I think am standing in the and of effort and ease,
Mm, mm.
which presents to me as probably my natural tendency is effort
Yeah.
and is reach.
Yeah.
So I have things I'm excited about that I'm reaching toward, and also feel newly settled into, I'm going to call it ease. I did a podcast recently that had something to do with surrender, which
Ah.
feels like a foreign concept to
Yeah.
me.
Right.
But I do feel a bit of ease with the flow. We talked at lunch
Hmm.
about transitions that are around and
Right.
upon my life.
Right.
So I feel nestled in a not resistant way, because I do want us to talk today about the and as many things are true. Sometimes I feel a lot of resistance around that and
Right.
tangle, and sometimes I have some acceptance around.
Yeah.
So I'm standing in effort and ease, I
Okay.
think, as I
Mm.
show up.
No, it's hard for me not to just plagiarize that,
That's
Heather.
go ahead. Feel
Well,
free.
I will, but maybe I'll put a little
Yeah,
twist on it.
sure.
So, as you were describing your tension between effort and
Yeah.
ease, and I can so relate to that
Yeah.
because I think my default is to always look for the easiest path,
Okay.
right? I mean, just being
Nice.
honest.
Great. That's why we're
Um,
here together to
uh,
balance the planet.
right. So, speaking of which, I think someone who is doesn't do what I do, hasn't spent so much time in education and training like I have, may look at me and think, "Oh my goodness, look at what tremendous effort this person has put forth." And certainly there's effort there,
Yeah.
but it felt easy for me,
Interesting.
right? I think it would have been much harder for me to pursue a career that was outside of science, because it would have been harder.
Right.
I mean, who knows? Maybe I could have been. We were joking earlier that I played the trombone
You're
when I
gonna
was.
be in a ska
I was
band.
going to be in a ska band, but that would have been so much harder for me because it wasn't something that came naturally.
Huh.
So, having said that, I guess my and today is finding myself in a gray kind of thundercloud, looking for the silver lining.
Hmm.
And that's really a professional comment. Our research has kind of hit a few bumps in the road over the last year,
Mm.
and they've been really hard and demoralizing, not just for myself, but our entire team.
Oof.
Um, but I always look for an opportunity to really lean into the science, the discovery, the fun, the excitement, despite the what has been really a long irritant in terms of getting to that science, right? So I'm sure as is true for you in your work, Heather, there are lots of things that have to be done that nobody wants to do. Someone has to do. That happens to me. When you
Yeah.
become the PI of a lab, you're expected to get the grants and
Right.
get
Not
some
it's not the
funding.
fun
It's
sciencey
not the fun. And,
parts.
and you know, in the best moments, that's a pretty thankless kind of job. It's certainly not a very fulfilling job. It's
Yeah.
only there for me to get to the
It's a
science.
means.
It's a means. It's a
Yeah.
means. So that's where I find myself today.
Having to effort on the
Yeah,
means.
yes, exactly, exactly. So because I know that the science is there, and I want us all, our whole team, to desperately get back to just focusing on the science, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. in the near future.
But the tension between the 2 and
Yeah,
the tension between what I really want to be spending my time on.
exactly. And what I could do right now so much more easily than to continue to fight and put forth effort to maintain all of the infrastructure that allows us to do the
Mhm.
science. It's something that I think about more now than I have ever before, and I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little early for me to really think about, do I want to wind down my program of research and focus more on teaching? And I certainly envision that at some point in my future, but not this soon. So we'll hopefully, we'll be able to reconnect, and I'll still be able to
Give
talk
us an
about the
update on that.
science.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I'd love to be able to give you a positive
Well,
update.
I think it's interesting what the tension, so when we experience that tension,
Yeah,
especially on the edge of our natural tendency,
right.
we're in the and,
Yeah,
what then that prompts in us
yeah,
from a what is the resolution to the tension? How long can we hold the tension
right.
if we can honor a purposefulness around it?
Yeah, yeah,
And then I wonder if it is the brain's tendency to try to resolve the dissonance. And what does that mean? Is it push through it faster and we'll get to the fun science? Is it
right.
maybe I need to be somewhere different? But all that it's just interesting. I,
Yeah,
I keep thinking about the friction, even from like sand and a
yeah.
oyster that makes a
Right.
pearl.
Yes, yes,
Is
yes, for
or
sure.
or in biology, sometimes those irritants that
Yeah,
there is a way that the body will push them out.
right,
So
right.
is it the pushing them out
Yeah,
or is it the holding them in because it is the irritant that creates the more beautiful thing on the other side? So
yeah,
just the nature of tension is interesting
exactly.
to
Yeah,
me,
yeah,
from a neuroscience perspective.
yeah.
So we'll connect the story back. Thank you for sharing because I think
Yes,
it's just
yes.
so helpful,
Yeah.
especially when we have what I would call experts in the and to
Okay.
say, y'all, the experts are people too.
Yes, indeed, we
Let's
are.
not forget we all are standing in an
Yeah,
and navigating a tension
yeah.
and trying to figure it out just like everybody else.
Right, right.
So yes, you graciously responded to an email because I got connected through a
A
student of
student, yes,
yours who
exactly.
a colleague connected me to because
Yeah.
I said at the time, I should say for my audience in case they don't know, I have a degree in biomedical science that I got in the late 90s.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, things have changed
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
little
They have.
since then. Turns out I try to pay attention
Yeah.
and not as if I knew everything I needed to at that point, and I have some fundamentals.
Yeah.
I do wanna try not on the podcast to be too nerdy about hemispheric
Sure.
specialization and other things that are gonna feel
Yeah.
complicated
Yeah.
to say and digest.
Yeah.
Um, but the thing that got me, aside from thinking about the "and" specifically was, and I may have mentioned this to you, I don't remember, but I think it was a book that I read called Whole Brain Living by
Mm.
Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I think it was in that book where she talks about somebody around that time that I was learning about that, spoke about how the amygdala
Yeah.
is not a single structure.
Right. Right.
And I'm sorry to
Yeah.
whoever taught me anatomy in the '90s that
Yeah.
I did not pick up on that, but I thought we had an amygdala.
Yes.
I did not know
Right.
that there was an amygdala, or however you would say the plural.
Yeah.
I'm messing it.
Amygdalae, although
Amygdalae is
nobody
weird,
does. We all
right?
say amygdala.
We say
Yeah.
amygdala, and it's so interesting, right? Just
Yeah.
given our use of language,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think we have an amygdala and it's one
Right.
almond-shaped structure in the
Right.
middle of the brain,
Right.
but there's one on each side.
There is.
And so
Exactly.
everybody I could find to listen to me for about a week, I was like,
Yeah.
"Wait, but did you know
We have
we have
2.
2 amygdala?" And they're like, "Okay." I was like, "So what if
Yeah.
that means we're getting different responses on either side because of the anatomy?" So I
Yeah.
think I came to you maybe
Yes.
was like, "Hi, I'm Heather. There's
Right.
2 amygdala. What do I need to know? How does that mean we're wired for and?"
Yeah.
And the conversation actually when we got to each other
Right.
took us more to discussion around circuits.
Yes. Yes.
But
Exactly.
basically, I was still like, Dr. Hariri,
Yeah.
are we wired for the and or not? Or how does that work?
Yeah.
So I think I just want you to tell us
Sure.
how you see this notion of the and,
Mm.
where I would say many things can be and feel true at once.
Yeah.
What is happening?
I think, perhaps a really effective way to have this conversation, Heather, hopefully for your audience as well, but for us at least,
Yeah.
we're the only ones in the booth
Yeah,
right
it's
now,
just us.
is to start with the amygdala, right? So not only
Oh,
is the amygdala, um, present in both hemispheres, in both halves of the brain, as are essentially all brain structures. They're really mirrors of each other in the right and left half. But the, beyond there being two amygdalas or amygdalae, the, the very notion of a amygdala is inaccurate. So the amygdala is actually at least 13 different smaller structures that are very close to each other physically and highly interconnected with each other.
See, there you go. It's not even like the all
Right.
sitting in the
Yeah.
brain. It's like a community of
It
little.
is. It is. But this is we were talking earlier about how the human brain and really all brains are there to recognize patterns.
Right.
Right. So the early anatomists, they not only recognize that, hey, this chunk of brain looks like an almond. And I don't know, maybe they were hungry. So that they were just thinking
Right.
about food. So they called it
Yeah, sure. Who
almond,
knows?
right? In Latin. Um, they use further shorthand, right? Shortcuts. They saw it as one thing. And until we were able to look more closely, we thought of it as one thing. And then as our methods, as the science evolved and became more sophisticated, we realized, oh, there are actually many different things, what are called nuclei. And so when you have neurons that together are processing some information and producing some action, in the brain, we call them nuclei. They're just basically neighborhoods of lots of neurons, oftentimes millions of neurons.
That's
So
crazy just to wrap your head around.
right,
When we say a group, we're
yeah,
talking
yeah,
millions.
right, and
So
then
it just is humbling and beautiful to me for
yeah,
us to just honor this thing,
yeah,
organ, it's brain and organ,
yes, yes, very much so in Oregon.
right?
Yeah,
That we're carrying around
yeah,
every day
yeah,
with millions,
yeah. Oh, billions of neurons,
billions of
and then
neurons.
and that's not even the most impressive aspect of the hardware. It's the connections that are made between these billions of neurons, which number in the trillions. So everything that we think about as being a product of our brain is really the product of massive amounts of communication across trillions of synapses in real time.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. It is awe inspiring. Um, for me, I've never been more interested in anything in my life than the brain. People can look at the stars, and without doubt, there's so much wonder and awe when we look out beyond our,
Yeah.
our planet. But I feel even more awe and kind of wonder thinking about what is happening inside each of our
I
skulls.
do too, and
Yeah,
that's why I can feel that in you, and I'm so
yeah,
glad you're here. Okay, I distracted us. You were talking about
the amygdala
the
and the
amygdala.
ant.
Do you still call the amygdala
Yeah.
even though it's a community of
So it depends on
I mean,
what the
keep
conversation is.
keep me honest, if
Okay.
I
Yeah.
wanna still be referring to things accurately, do I still say amygdala, or do you call
Yes.
it, like, a region of
No. 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 So I think in terms of day-to-day conversation,
Yeah,
the amygdala does a perfect job.
okay,
But, for example, in my class, I very early on, even the first lecture, I like to kind of, drop the kids into the
right,
deep end and say, "Hey, this is
implode.
what we're doing. Right. You're gonna swim with me, and we're gonna have a great time, or maybe you should
Yeah,
change classes."
right,
Um, I introduced them to at least 3 separate nuclei or substructures within the amygdala. Okay, and we'll separate. We'll cut it down to just 2.
okay,
Okay, one of them we'll refer to as the BLA. Those are the initials. It stands for basolateral amygdala, but that's a lot. So let's just talk about the BLA.
okay,
So the BLA receives input from all of our senses and many other sources of information, including our what we call our interoception. So our awareness of our bodily states. I'm hungry, my stomach is grumbling, my heart is racing because I'm fearful or nervous, my palms are sweating. That all is captured by this idea of interoception, basically detecting our internal states. Those signals go to the BLA. Everything you see, hear, taste, touch, smell, right to the BLA. And then the BLA is also where some of our experiences converge. So if you, for example, are shocked by static electricity, or you touch a hot stove, or anything happens that causes pain, that signal also goes to the BLA.
in a real time or
Oh no,
memory of?
no, 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 in very much real time.
Okay,
And so if two things occur simultaneously, they coincide. So let's say you hear something and you experience a static shock. That information, the sound and the pain signal that that shock creates, converge on the BLA. And when they do that, they strengthen the connections of specific neurons within the BLA.
Hmm.
We sometimes refer to these as fear neurons. And that's the fundamental basis of how we learn to be afraid of certain things and how we can use clues in our environment to predict something bad is going to happen. And in doing so, hopefully avoid that bad thing altogether. Okay, so this is the BLA, and the BLA accomplishes what many of us think of as fight or flight by sending signals to other parts of the
So
brain.
is the BLA a structure or circuit?
It's a structure.
Okay.
It's a structure within a larger circuit. So one of the important downstream structures that the BLA signals is called the central nucleus of the amygdala, or CEA. I know it's like it's impossible to
I know.
do this without a lot of jargon.
Yeah.
But then, so the CEA and many other downstream structures in our brainstem and our hypothalamus um, are how the BLA, having learned that this sound is associated with something bad happening, so kind of the fundamentals of conditioning, how it changes our physiology and also our behavioral states, our attention, our arousal, to be able to motivate us to mobilize our resources to confront some threat or avoid some threat. Okay, so this is the core role of the amygdala as a hub of a circuit in learning how to keep us safe, right? In recognizing danger and keeping us safe from those dangerous things in the world. Now, what does this have to do with the and? The BLA is also critically important for learning about good things that are happening
Mm.
and recognizing cues in our environment that are associated with positive outcomes, reward, food, water, friendship, sex, all of these things that are critical for survival, as is avoiding, death basically, right? You need to survive, but you also need to thrive. The BLA is actually communicating the sensory information in both circuits. So in a circuit that is designed to keep us safe by recognizing danger and creating fear, the BLA is centrally involved, as it is in the circuit that allows us to then recognize things that predict good outcomes and positive experiences and motivates us to seek out those things. So in this one small structure in the brain, which by the way is shared by every animal with the backbone, this is a very ancient structure. You have these very two constructs, two processes, two phenomena that are superficially, or at least not even superficially, but the way they're expressed couldn't be more different,
Right.
right? Running away from something, you can think about it, versus running towards something. The signaling, the learning that's occurring is all in one structure.
So when I feel like I have my foot on the brakes and the gas at the same
Right.
time, it's
Yeah.
like, of course,
Yeah.
BLA.
Right. Right. Yeah. We're
I
and
don't have, I don't, it's not yeah, it just like,
yeah.
this is its job.
Right. It is its job, and it does it really well. It does it really well, and I think that's because it's been around for so long, right? From really the very beginnings of vertebrate animals, that it wouldn't still be with us if it didn't do a job and didn't do a job very well, right? So now the amygdala is oftentimes thrown out as the cause of anxiety, the cause of depression, the cause of PTSD, yada, 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 yada. I think that's completely wrong,
Mm.
right? I think the amygdala does the job it's meant to do and does it very well. But it's not up to the amygdala to figure out, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Should I go here? Should I not? That is the job of what we refer to as the prefrontal cortex.
Right, because it's a more when we think BLA, so let me
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
kind of catch myself up.
Yes. Yeah.
BLA is a part of
Right.
the amygdala?
Right. Yeah. But in many ways, when we're talking about learning about danger and reward, it is the core part of the amygdala that is
Okay.
facilitating both types
But
of
it's
learning.
still, it goes together. It's a
Yes.
piece of that amygdala is
Yeah.
a bunch of different things. It's one of the
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
So
And arguably the most important part of it when we talk about reward and threat and fear.
okay,
Yeah.
it's the core.
Yeah.
And when we think amygdala, I think primitive
Yes,
as
yes,
far as
yeah,
kind of levels of complexity or advancement in our brain.
most certainly.
So BLA being piece of the amygdala,
Right.
threat and reward. We
Yeah.
have it in common with other animals.
Right. Yeah.
So it's taking in, this is back to why I don't think AI can replace intelligence
Right.
because because when you say it's doing interoception,
Yes.
when
Yes.
it's when we are then going to be doing decision making and
Yeah.
pattern recognition
Right.
from our sensory experience,
Yeah.
that is a uniquely
Yeah.
embodied thing.
Absolutely.
So now catch us. So we have this kind of base primitive inputs
Mhm. Mhm.
that are then detecting
Right.
threat
Right.
and
Reward.
reward.
Yes. Yes.
And then where does it go?
Okay.
Because you
So
said it's
yeah.
not that,
Right.
it goes somewhere else. So
Right.
then it's moving a level up on the elevator
Yeah. Yeah.
to
So
prefrontal cortex, which is more,
exactly.
I think of the thinking brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
so take us from there.
You got it. So let me make one
Yeah, just
clarifying point. So, um, whether the information that's converging on the BLA ultimately results in fear or threat related behaviors like fight or flight, or in um, kind of positive behaviors, happiness, reward, is all about how the information is then communicated forward. Right. So for the fear pathway, that those neurons in the amygdala that have learned these patterns, these associations, the amygdala, by the way, the BLA or any other nucleus, is all about learning. They're foundations for learning and putting information together for establishing patterns.
that's a job.
That's his job.
Okay.
It's his job. Whether you're talking about a bird, a fish, a mouse, a monkey, a man.
It's a pattern. When the lion comes, this
You got it.
happens, and
You
now I'm
got it.
gonna
Yeah.
know that when we say know that, but we're gonna have that baked into the kind of quote memory of what those
Yeah.
kind of neuro connections are.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. So it's interesting to know that because there's an argument, and
Yeah, that's what I think I did air quotes. Like I
right,
don't
you
know what
did.
we mean by like learning and knowing from
Yes,
a neuron synapse
right.
standpoint.
Yeah, so it's happening certainly in terms of this learning, and by learning, what I'm trying to kind of capture is the ability of our brains, and in this case, the BLA of the amygdala, to connect information together and use those connections to make changes downstream that are ultimately going to help us survive.
Survive.
Yeah. Now, uh, all this information processing in the amygdala isn't really reaching our consciousness. In other words, what's happening there, we're not quite yet aware of it. It's once those signals start to go forward to other brain structures, in particular the prefrontal cortex, but also, for example, we talked about interoception. There are structures in the brain, again, one on each side, called the insula, where we start to register what's happening to our bodies.
Because certainly some of that would need to be an immediate.
Yeah. Oh,
I need a
okay.
pathway of like,
Yes.
oh, the lion is here. I don't have time to ponder it
Right.
and like
Yeah.
discern and do those
Yeah.
things. So
Yeah.
there's something in there that's real fast.
Yes. So that's it. So it's a very important point that you bring up, and I would consider it almost a nuance for the general kind of understanding of how the brain is shaping behavior, and that is there are indeed lots of things that happen in the absence of any learning, and certainly not requiring the amygdala to play any role. But we think of those as reflexes.
I see.
So when
Okay.
you pull your hand away from a hot stove or something that causes you to
Right.
feel pain, that's happening between your fingers and your spinal cord. That is not even getting to the central nerve. That's not getting to the brain.
Interesting.
Yeah, because those are things that you just can't afford to take the time to learn because you're going to die, right? So
Interesting.
reflexes are completely different and not subject to the same learning that we think about in terms of higher order behavior. So
Okay, so we're talking about higher order. That's just important, right?
yeah,
Reflex
yeah, right,
versus higher order of behavior. Because there are some things that
yeah,
to me feel like when I
right,
think of human interaction
yeah, yeah.
that I might say
Yes, that
that
are
sure
reflexive.
feels like a
Yes. Oh, you
reflex,
bet, you bet. Even if it's not the
even if
same kind
it's
of
not
spinal
that.
reflex, it is very much akin to a reflex because it's based on a very simple form of learning, right? Or assumptions
Yes.
about the
Yes.
environment that triggers a response that is inherently not informed by our higher order cognitive processes, right?
Yes.
They really are much more simple actions. So fear is even so let me take a step back.
I know.
The hot stove, right? You pull your
Yes.
hand away
Reflex.
if you touch it. That's a reflex. But if you see these old-fashioned electric burners, you remember they kind of glow orange, hot.
Yeah, I
If
think
you
I
if
have
you
one
s
in my
right, if
I
you
think I
see
have
yeah,
that.
right. Or if you see a flame, right?
Yeah,
You've learned over time
right.
that that means that thing is hot. Don't touch it. Now, looking at that red glowing,
Mhm.
stovetop isn't causing you any pain, but
Right.
you've made the association, right? So that
It's
is
more
the
like
amygdala.
learning coming back down the
You
other way.
you got it. You
Yeah.
got it. And one of the things that is really lovely about the human brain, and believe it or not, even brains of other animals, including mice, is that we don't only learn about danger through experience.
Man,
Well, I don't know if that might be another
we're
conversation.
not just about
But
epigenetics.
but no, well, yes, epigenetics is pretty cool too.
Okay, that's another time.
That's another time.
Okay,
Yeah,
focus.
but basically, what we can do is we can learn by observing others.
Yeah.
Right? So you see someone burn their hand on a stove and you're remember your amygdala is getting signals all the time, constantly. It's getting information about that red glowing stovetop. And so it can learn indirectly through the experience of others that that red stove means danger.
Even through story.
So that you've taken to the third level. So
That's what I
the
do.
first level, you got it. That's it. That's the and. So the first level
Level
is
it up.
direct experience, right?
Yes.
Would suck to only be able to learn about bad things through
Through
direct
touching them.
experience,
Right.
right? Um, the second level is through observation, which is also like, who are we going to be observing more often than not? Our friends, our family. It's not, pleasant to see a friend or family member
Touch the stove.
touch the
Right.
stove or be bitten or whatever, right? Then the third, and this is the level that I think may separate the human brain from other brains, is
Yep.
that we can just be taught completely indirectly that something is dangerous, right? So in my classes, I throw
Indirectly and perhaps incorrectly.
that, well, exactly, right? And it all really depends on who's teaching you and
Right.
what they're teaching you, because the underlying brain circuitry to learn is the same and it has the same capacity for learning. Um, when you were mentioning that you were at the beach with friends, and depending on where you are, you might see warning signs about undertow or rip currents or even sharks, right? Now, you read that and you think, at least I do, maybe I'm a little bit of a chicken. I'm not going in the water.
Right. Like, I trust you.
Yeah, but I've never, thank God, been bitten by a shark or seen anyone bitten by a shark. I've heard the stories, and I've been told that sharks, if they do bite you, can cause a lot of damage.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's enough for my amygdala to then be able to take that information that's a warning, a sign that says, warning, sharks have been spotted in these waters. And the amygdala can change my physiology, can increase my heart rate, it can deepen my breathing, it can cause my palms to sweat to the point where it motivates me. My interpretation of that is, hey, this is a potentially dangerous place or situation, and I choose to avoid it.
Well, let's talk though about so if the BLA is receiving that,
Right.
so all of that runs to BLA originally.
Yeah.
You said also other inputs that are lovely.
Right.
So
Right.
so let's just play this out. I'm reading the sign
Yeah.
about the current and the sharks,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I see the beautiful water,
Right.
and I
Right.
feel the sun on my
Yeah.
skin, and I feel
Yeah.
my toes in the sand,
Right.
and that part of me
You're
is
starting to
like,
do a calculus, right? You're doing
so I
actuarial.
am standing in the end of
Yes.
shark danger, and I don't know if this is more about discernment and decision making, but
Yeah.
just to say, if I'm tracking this example, I'm going to be maybe at that level, not consciously even, or maybe I am conscious.
Yeah.
Is this where from BLA then to higher level thinking and prefrontal cortex, I then am aware that I am in a little bit of a mixed
Right.
message situation
Exactly.
about what I'm going to choose to do.
Exactly.
Is that how
Exactly.
that plays out?
Yeah. So this is, and I think the example that you provide is perfect. So on one hand, there are neurons and circuits within the BLA. Remember, we're talking about millions of neurons
It's crazy.
that have learned the association between these warning signs and being bitten, right? Being the victim of a shark attack or getting pulled into a rip current, right? So that's happening because you're at the beach, you see the sign,
Right.
maybe the water, the surf looks particularly strong today. There are other neurons in the BLA that have made the connection between surf and sand and sun and
Joy.
joy, right? Just rolling in the waves, maybe surfing, maybe, whatever it is. And so they're both those parallel in many way pathways are being activated at the same time by the same context and stimuli. Now, that is ultimately going to reach your prefrontal cortex very quickly. Oftentimes, my students ask, well, because I present the flow of information serially. And very, very kind of astutely, they ask, well, what's the timing? And the reality is that everything that we break down into these sequential steps is happening on the order of milliseconds, right? So the timing is incredibly fast, so fast that we're really not aware of it.
Right.
One of the important things that happens when either of those BLA pathways is activated, the good and the bad, is it creates broader arousal throughout the rest of the brain.
Mm.
So both systems are positioned where they can increase the signaling of acetylcholine, what we call cholinergic tone. And what acetylcholine does for all of the neurons in our brain is it makes them more responsive to input. Whatever input,
It's
maybe
just waking everything up.
waking up, exactly. Hey, 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 you know what? Maybe you should be paying attention to what's happening out here, right? I
Yeah.
need you. The amygdala is basically asking the prefrontal cortex
We
to
just
wake up.
received a memo
Yeah,
from the
you
BLA.
got it.
Wake up, class.
Wake up. And now it's up to you to
What are you going to do
decide,
about it?
does it really look like a risky, day to be out in the water? Man, it's been weeks and I drove 3 hours to be at the beach. I really want to be in the water. All right, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take the risk, the calculated risk to be in the water despite the warning. Okay, now that's one scenario. The other is that, hey, I know it's going to be a lot of time and effort to get out here, but I would rather be safe than sorry.
Yeah.
But that decision is not being made by the amygdala.
So what's
That's prefrontal cortex.
Okay.
That's the prefrontal cortex. And there
Because
are
when we met before, you said the and is right here.
yeah. So exactly. So the prefrontal cortex
I'm
is
tapping
also
on my third eye
yeah,
region,
which
everyone.
is exactly where I'm going to take us
Okay.
next, because the prefrontal cortex also isn't one thing.
Yeah.
Right. Uh, there are at least three important areas of the prefrontal cortex that are going to be helping us ultimately make this decision. The first is the medial prefrontal cortex. I'll simplify it to two. Okay. So the amygdala is a deep brain structure, highly conserved across species, ancient, and it's learning, what are the things in and around us that are signaling and have in our past experiences signaled good things or bad things are going to happen, right? And then how do we leverage that information to make good things happen more often and to keep bad things from happening?
Mhm.
So it's doing that. But especially if you're in a position where you have this tension, you have some signals that are related to good and some related to bad, the amygdala can't resolve that tension. That's the
Not
prefrontal
designed.
cortex.
Yeah,
It's not
not its
designed. No,
job.
it doesn't even have the right connections to do that. So one of the things that happens in the medial prefrontal cortex is inputs from the amygdala, inputs from the reward circuitry, inputs from even the insula that's registering what we're feeling in our bodies, as well as inputs from our hippocampus, which is encoding, creating memories of all of these things. They are converging on the medial prefrontal cortex. And it's really in the medial prefrontal cortex that we think that our conscious awareness emerges. So the idea that something feels good or feels bad is not happening in the amygdala. It's happening in the medial prefrontal cortex. And so the medial prefrontal cortex is in many ways the great integrator.
Mhm.
So it's integrating what I like to refer to as these bottom up signals about what's going on outside of us and how what we're experiencing on the outside is affecting our
Inside.
inside, but it also is integrating the plans that are coming from what we call the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. So right over here, basically. And it's the what we use shorthand DLPFC to describe dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. That is where the key cognitive functions are being maintained. So what we call working memory, right? So let me take a step back. Attention, right? So where am I directing my sensory resources and other resources? What am I attending to in the environment? So I see that warning sign that there are rip
Mhm.
currents or sharks in the ocean. I'm attending to whatever might be out there. Maybe I see evidence of a strong current, or I see the telltale dorsal fin of
Yeah.
a shark. But I'm attending to that ocean now in a way that I wasn't before. Okay, and same thing happens where you're like, oh, it's sunny, the
It's a
surf looks
beautiful
good. Yeah, I'm gonna be able
day.
to get some good,
Yeah.
good
We've woken
runs.
your brain up to pay attention
Yeah,
to all of that.
exactly. And that's the acetylcholine at work, by the
Yeah.
way, cholinergic tone, we call it. So the DLPFC is attending to the information now in a way that's much more precise, much more detailed.
Mm.
And then it takes that information and it starts to make decisions based on it using what we call working memory. So working memory is one way to think about it is like our mental
Yeah,
notepad, scratch
sure.
pad. Quick, the way I we used to the way like so many things no longer relevant, but we
Right.
used to describe learning a person's phone number as being a great example of working memory. Right, like you meet someone like, oh,
Yeah.
what's your phone number? You rehearse it in
Stick
working
it in the
memory.
stick it in the Rolodex in your brain.
Exactly, and then you get somewhere and you write it down.
Yeah.
Um, so attention, working memory, and then the last element of what we call executive control is response selection. Okay, this is
This is where I'm gonna make a decision.
exactly right, and that is ultimately uh, the DLPFC's role to say, I'm going to get in the water. I'm going to take the risk because the reward is so potentially great for me that I'm willing to take the risk. Or it's the DLPFC says, you know what? It's too risky. It's too risky.
So
I'm going to come back another day.
when I think about that series of events,
Yeah.
almost like I'm gonna set up and knock down dominoes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think about the experience of feeling the tension of the and.
Yeah.
It feels like it could almost be at many of those levels because there are times where, great, I'm alert to it all,
Hmm.
and I don't know. I still, like, we get kind of stuck in,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to do this or
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So that experience.
Hmm.
Also, sometimes in the end, I feel like what we're talking about is being stuck on the outside of the and I don't know
Hmm.
how that applies to this model
Well,
where I might just see the fear side
yeah.
and all I can register, it's like the circuit that is fear maybe is so strong that it out signals the other one
And that's in fact
that
what
I
happens.
can't. Because so when I talk about on all of these where we're standing in various ands, I
Yeah.
say, gosh, I lean this way, or I get stuck outside of the and,
Yeah.
or when people get stuck in false dichotomy
Exactly.
to say, is it this or this?
Yeah.
It's perhaps one side. And I don't know if we even need to get into how this happens, but
Yeah.
it just feels true experientially without knowing what the
Yeah.
brain's doing,
Yeah.
that the anxiety and the fear side of doing a podcast is so loud
Right. Right.
that whatever needed to come out of the BLA to
Yeah.
get to the prefrontal cortex,
Yeah.
like, just
Yeah.
tinkered out.
Yeah, yeah, no, and that's exactly what we observe.
Okay.
So if we create an experiment where you take, we can just do it with a person, right? And you ask someone, please don't eat for 24 hours before you come to the lab for the experiment. So you know that they're going to be hungry, or maybe even don't drink. We could take it to an even more extreme. So
That feels pretty extreme to me
yeah,
already.
well, but when we study addiction,
Mm,
and abstinence, oftentimes what we do is we ask smokers to not smoke
for 24
yeah,
hours.
and that is really hard. So now you're talking about someone who is, in many ways, every circuit in their brain is now
Alert to that.
orchestrated towards getting that cigarette,
Right.
getting that nicotine, right? And then you put them in a situation where they can get nicotine, but it's only if they go through something very aversive. right? Like, okay, you can have a cigarette, but in order to get that cigarette, you're going to have to be exposed to a shock.
Oh,
I'm kind of making this up.
I'm like, is this what you're doing? And you're
No, no, it's not. I
shocking me?
promise it's
Okay,
not.
that's terrible.
But it's a it's a pretty
Yeah,
reasonable. I
sure.
don't think it's an unreasonable kind of situation. Granted, it's contrived for a laboratory, but we
Right.
can kind of extrapolate it to
Sure.
our real world experiences. So what we find is that in those situations, fear will win out. But the default is fear because fundamentally it's more important
It's more
to
protective.
survive. Exactly. And ultimately allows us one more day or maybe one more hour,
So
right?
that just feels so everybody,
Yeah.
if we've lost you so far,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. But
At least it's
please,
been with enthusiasm,
it's
right?
been enthusiastic. But this point
Yeah.
that we are wired
Yep.
both for fear and reward or
Yes.
pleasure.
Yes.
And if given a choice,
Yeah.
fear will win
Yep.
because it is more likely to help keep us alive. And that is all our brains are trying to do.
Exactly. Well,
So
or rather when faced
when
with
faced with a choice,
survival or
survival or
thriving,
something,
right?
we're going to
So
pick survive.
yeah, right.
This is so important, I think,
Yeah.
because if this is, and you said this, I don't know if it was before we started recording officially
Mhm.
or not, but the environment that our brain is wired to
Yeah.
keep us alive in
Mhm.
and to have fear when it needs to for survival
Right.
is not actually much related to the environment we find ourselves in now,
Exactly.
yet
Yeah.
fear can still feel dominant. So sometimes when
Mhm.
I'm talking to people, I say, yeah, what we're trying to do here in this organization or in this community
Yeah.
where we're going to have to, on purpose, make ourselves uncomfortable to do this thing
Right.
is outside of our natural wiring
Yeah.
because our natural wiring is going to lead fear and try to keep us safe. So I think
Absolutely.
so often folks in my audience are having to lead teams and self
Right.
against all that
Yeah.
synapse
Yeah.
energy
Yeah.
that's like danger, danger, danger to help somehow pave the other side that says reward and maybe not even reward for me, but reward for the greater good.
Right.
And that we're having to push against
Yeah.
millions, yet maybe billions of connections that are
Yes.
trying to nudge us otherwise. So this idea that we're wired for and
Yeah.
is important and that our brain is more wired for survival
Yes.
than it
No.
is some of the things we're actually trying to be about when we think of it from top down.
Right.
And maybe this is right because when we talk about amygdala kind of bottom up, like
yes, very much so.
from primitive to
Yep.
thoughtfulness,
Yep.
in my more top down, and I'll just say like thinking advanced brain that can set intentions that says we need to do better for community.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
sometimes bottom up and top down is another and that might crash into each
Exactly.
other.
Well, and think about Heather, the fact that the very top down control that you need to regulate that fear is also the top down or control that you need to lead the team through whatever exercise or planning. So now your already limited resources are being spread even thinner
Mm,
because you're managing your own anxiety or fear about what may go wrong, what might go wrong, and is this am I going to do a good job? Am I ready? All the doubts that we have,
right.
all of our lives. You are managing those with exactly the same resources that you need to be able to do the training or to give your talk or to explain data or to predict some or forecast some
Yeah.
market.
Because when you say resources, what you're talking about is brain real estate, if you will.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the things I try to establish from the get-go in my classes is that we are all limited resources. We don't have
Mhm.
infinite resources. We can't do simultaneously 16 different things, or at least we can't do them as well as we would ideally want to do if we could address them serially. So we have to prioritize. And I was going to say, even with regards to survival, there are priorities, right? So don't get eaten, don't get killed is number one.
Right.
Okay, then it's eat so you don't starve and die that way. And then it's reproduce,
Yeah.
right? So even when you have clearly what are elements of survival, there's still a prioritization, a stratification of what has to happen right now versus what can be delayed for the future.
Gosh, and just, I mean, it sounds simple to say that, but how that plays out from a day-to-day human
Yeah.
experience and the very real thoughts that come up of,
Right.
"Oh, if I do that, how will it threaten my job that
Hmm.
does impact my safety and my family?" And we're wrestling in all of these
Yeah.
things. So
Yeah.
again, and the brain is wired to help us wrestle with them.
Right.
It's not necessarily a chatbot that you're gonna push it all in and
No,
get a
no.
summary out of, is
Right.
we are navigating in our brains,
Yeah.
not because you're broken, but because this is how it's wired
Absolutely. Yeah.
to help us make sure we're taking in all the information to make the best decision possible.
Yeah.
And I guess it just feels like we might could use, sometimes a upgrade
Yes.
in the software that would help us get a more accurate, take
Yeah.
on how real threat is that we're
Right.
assessing and
Exactly.
acknowledging. I mean, we're talking about this as if it's the same for everybody, but we know there's variability from person to person,
Yeah.
from the life experience that goes into understanding threat.
Yeah.
I think of trauma when I think of this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So all of the different factors that shape this,
Right.
um, I think I sit here taking this in to just feel, I guess, again, humbled by the complexity
Yeah. Yeah.
and normalized
Yeah.
when I'm thinking, gosh, I'm having all these thoughts and feelings about this. What's wrong with me? I'm like, nothing.
Yeah.
That's how it's wired.
Exactly.
And then it just points me to, I think, and maybe spend a minute here is, so what do I do with that?
Yeah.
Right? When I'm trying to just exist and
Hmm.
human,
Hmm.
make decisions, um, even from the conversation so far, what you said about the resources that we have. And
Yeah.
if I'm anxious and fearful and I need to be thinking,
Yeah.
I think it is it Dan Siegel, hand brain model talks about like we kind of have to calm down that fear response
Exactly.
side of it so that we can
Yeah.
use the real estate
Yeah.
for the thinking and the function. I think there's been a fair amount of conversation around that piece.
Yeah.
I just wonder, I mean, maybe knowing what you know,
Yeah.
even of
Yeah.
all of this,
Yeah.
how does that change how you understand and navigate
Yeah.
the and?
Yeah. Well, so one of the things, just to address your
Yeah.
question, the one thing that I try and allow myself is to accept that it's part of my biology,
Mm,
right? To not be overly judgmental.
yes.
It's not me, it's every human, it's every in many ways, every animal that is experiencing these competing, draws on their attention and their actions, and we always have to well, I hope that we're always striving to make the best decisions in the moment, right? But
I
we're not always gonna make those decisions, and sometimes our decisions are gonna be overwhelmed by these bottom up forces.
right.
Just don't judge yourself too harshly if you can't manage them all the time. No one can. And so on that note, I wanted to emphasize that we have a much harder job than other animals do. And this is something that brings me back to kind of the pioneering work of Robert Sapolsky, who is a neuroscientist, and through his field studies of baboons in Africa and other animals, in a book that he wrote many years ago called "Why Don't Zebras Get Ulcers?" What Sapolsky really wanted to draw our attention to is the difference between acute stress, which is really important in our survival, and chronic stress.
Mm.
So zebras don't get ulcers because zebras are eaten by lions. They're not standing around the savannah day after day worried
Worried they're going
about
to be
because they're either going to survive
or not.
or they're not. It's really so simple that it's brilliant, right?
Yeah.
So we are dealing with chronic stressors in a way that is historic, and no other animal that I know of outside of the preclinical models that we create to try and study chronic stress for us exists because you're either going to make it or you're not,
Yeah.
right? And the only chronic stress I can really think about in animals is in domesticated animals. So it's chronic stress that we create for them.
Right. It's just the contagious
Yeah,
stress from
exactly
a
right.
stressed
Yeah,
owner.
yeah, or limiting their ability to express their instinctual behaviors, right?
Mm,
I have a dog and a cat, and
yeah.
they can't just express their instinctual behavior. I have to rein it in, and that creates a stress for them.
Yeah. I think it creates a stress for us too
It
to
does
rein
is
in some of that.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So we're dealing with this chronic stress,
Yeah.
and it's artificial. So again, you
Mm.
did a really lovely job, Heather, of describing how our brains evolved in a very different context,
Mhm.
where we were going to a watering hole and with maybe a few other humans in our tribe, and we might encounter predators. And so the everything that we now have and we work with was present in these early humans and used to basically determine, okay, where's the watering hole? Is it safe to go there now? And while I'm there, is it safe to drink? If not, I need to run away. Do I detect a predator? Those were the things that we really had to do for our survival, and what our brains were really ideally designed to do. Now you put them in these very modern contexts where we no longer have these pressures.
Right.
Even in unfortunately, it's a these kinds of luxuries aren't presented to every
Correct.
person on the planet. So,
Right.
but for Western kind of industrialized people, we don't really think about predation anyway, right?
Right.
We may, and unfortunately, many of us still struggle with food
Right.
and housing. We don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting that everybody just has an
Right.
easy day of it, but it's very rare that you have to worry about predation, right? Of being killed. There are contexts, right? So
Absolutely.
PTSD and combat
Right.
and
There's still a lot of, I mean,
there are. And one of the kind of the curious things, I should say one of the I think more interesting things that we can study is how those kinds of environments that really put us back in a very primitive survival mode,
right.
like in the Middle East right now, or in Ukraine or other
Right.
parts of the world that are at war. Do we see the same levels of psychopathology of mental illness that we see in otherwise, peaceful times?
Mm.
I've argued that a lot of what we consider mental illness emerges when we basically have so much time and we have this apparatus, we have this hardware, and it just has to apply its programming to something. And so it creates problems, it recognizes things as problems when in fact they're not, but they're interpreted by our brains and through our brains, our bodies, as if it's a lion, right? That's waiting at the watering hole and is going to eat us.
That resonates with me just personally a
Yeah. Oh,
lot.
me too.
I would
Me too.
say that, um, I mean, I'm sure I've told family. I
Yeah.
said my brain is wired,
Yeah.
or just I probably say it's my brain's gonna churn. It's very churny.
Yeah.
I can choose projects and learn new things and put it in a direction, or it's gonna spin out in a different way, but
Right.
it's gonna spin.
It is. Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
I feel very wired for taking in context, problem solving. It's hard to, and I think you talk to people about it. It's just hard to turn. I can't go to sleep at night. I can't turn, quote, my brain off.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't, I mean, I'm sure
I could never do yoga because as soon as
there's
someone says,
variability.
just let you
You're
turn
like,
off your mind, I'm like,
yeah,
ah.
can do. So the brain's a curious thing. I
Yeah.
mean, it's so powerful and it is how we can do what we can do.
Yeah.
And also sometimes does feel like, can I please get an off switch? Or,
Yeah.
what are ways, yeah, to help it be in service
Right. Right.
to my modern day priorities. And
Exactly.
I too, just like you, want to understand,
Yeah.
the privilege of problems that I'm solving in a day. I am food secure.
Right.
I am in a primarily safe environment.
Yeah.
I do feel it differently when I travel alone or right.
Right.
There are
Yes.
times where you
Yes. Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
safety
Yeah. Yeah.
hit differently. So not to
Yeah.
say we need to, all of those parts of us are important.
Yes. Oh, for
And so
sure.
often we are spending more of our time
Yeah.
um, in that other executive kind of place.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, just to kind of come back to, given that we know all of this,
Right.
what shall we do with it or how does it help us human differently?
Yeah.
And one of them, and I love what you said about just non-judgmentally
Yeah.
understanding that your biology is doing what your biology does.
Yeah. Yeah.
What else comes up for you, Amon? Is there anything else you would kind of um, let us hold as far as
Mhm.
how to, I don't even want to say how to make peace with, but just how to, and optimize doesn't feel right
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
But how do we work with the Jillian
Yeah.
neurons
Right.
in the best way possible? And
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's the right question. Are there things that we can do that help?
Yeah.
Um, I think probably pain as a human experience is inevitable in some ways, and I
Yeah.
think there's some struggle that we could remove.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do we not struggle against ourselves?
Yeah. I actually don't know if we ever can or if
Yeah.
we should stop struggling.
Yeah,
I
or
think
maybe that's it.
I
Maybe
think
it's
I
normalizing
think it's
that.
the nature of the struggle and the understanding of
Okay.
where that struggle comes from,
Okay.
and perhaps even more importantly, that it's our struggle.
Say that. Say more.
It's not your struggle or my struggle. Everyone is experiencing this struggle. It's a
Mm.
universal condition, human condition, if not animal condition. So a couple of things that I would
Yeah.
love to share, and perhaps others may find it, a starting point
Okay.
to work with the multiplicity that is our brain
I like that.
and our minds.
Yeah.
So one is that we have tremendous control, the capacity at least for controlling these bottom up signals, these forces that drive
Mm.
us to fear, or you know,
So not reflex. We can't
no,
control
no, right,
reflex, but this
right,
other level,
yes.
this BLA fear
Yeah, yeah. So
pleasure. Okay.
so every brain has within it the circuitry that generates the fear, and through that the fight or flight response, or generates the strong motivation and desire for reward and positive experiences. But it also has, remember, this amazing prefrontal cortex that can integrate competing signals, right? So going back to our earlier example, you're getting a signal that you're hungry, but you're also getting signals that, hey, this is a place where last time I was almost eaten alive,
Mm.
right? So now you're getting these competing drives. It's the prefrontal cortex that first integrates that. It's like, I'm hungry, but I'm also
Right.
afraid. What do I do? Do I go after the food, or do I play it safe and avoid the danger? And like we already established, more often than not, the default will become to avoid the danger.
Mhm.
And it's the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex is ultimately going to be positioned to make that decision. And a few things that we know about our general emotional experiences is that labeling them
Mm.
can engage the prefrontal cortex, including the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. And just through that engagement can help reduce and silence the amygdala and the
Mm.
fear signal that it's generating.
Almost so the brain, when we get that to that elevator level,
Yeah,
open the
just
door to say,
labeling.
I see you, fear.
Exactly.
And then fear can drop back down.
Yeah, yeah,
Instead of having to jump around and say, do you see me? Are you paying attention? Are we activating? Do we
yeah,
have the tension, whatever you called the brain's awake?
exactly. The cholinergic tone,
Colon under
exactly.
turn
Yeah.
to go,
And
I see you,
right.
label it, and then it can relax.
You got it. You
Okay.
got it. Now,
Interesting.
that's easier said than done, right?
100%.
But and in fact, I feel like it's such a core component of psychotherapy, of cognitive behavioral therapy,
Mm.
is learning to recognize the emotions that you're experiencing in a non-judgmental way, and then to manage those emotions and labeling. Look, everything we do, and I'm not bright enough to really even imagine a consciousness without language.
Mhm.
Everything is through language, is labels, right? Is words. And those come from the very parts of our brain that are positioned to inhibit and control these bottom up drives like fear. Or, on the reward side, people with addictions pursue rewards, or motivated for rewards that are maladaptive, that cause lots of problems, right? But you can control that too through the same top down circuit, even through labeling.
Mm.
So that's just one thing to think about. One of the worst things we know that a person can do, especially with negative emotions, is to suppress them. Is just shove them inside.
And when we say suppressed, I'm going to say like pretend they're not there
Yeah,
or ignore them.
right. Or you could even start to engage in certain labeling, like I'm not really bothered by this. This isn't really a big deal. Those oftentimes are not helpful.
That feels still like suppressing.
Right. It's really using what psychologists call cognitive reappraisal. Okay, like, okay, is this something really bad that's happened? But reappraising it in a way that minimizes the negative emotional impact. right? At least
Hmm.
in that moment.
So let me try on
Yeah.
something
Okay.
with you that maybe is related to this. So I have shared this story on a prior podcast, but a tool that I've used personally
Yeah.
when I feel fearful.
Mm-hmm.
And often fear will come to me and it feels or anxious energy and it has a lot of has a lot of spiral around it. So
Yes.
I would say, 10, 15 years ago, my approach would have been turn away.
Right.
Like, I don't want to feel it, push
Yep.
away. So
Yep.
that probably falls into what you're saying is the suppression.
More suppression. Yeah.
Now I sometimes, aside from turn toward fear and get curious about it,
Right.
I sometimes say, let's open the fear suitcase.
Yeah.
So I think of it as like fear has brought me some
Yeah.
luggage
Yep. Yep.
and now I'm
It's
going to,
woken up your prefrontal
and I'm
cortex.
awake. And
Yeah.
so now,
Mm.
I'm acknowledging it. I'm going to open the fear suitcase and I often will draw this out visually and
Yeah.
go, okay,
Yeah.
what's in here? Oh, I'm afraid. Okay, that actually is a legit fear. And we need to think about that because that probably could happen. And then there's a bunch of things that are pretend that are not feel real, but it gives me a chance
Yeah.
to be with it
Yeah. To
in a
part of
different
the fun
way.
to unpack it
Yeah, I
in a
really
way
do. I
that's
said, we got to
manageable.
unpack this.
Yeah.
So I say, like, open the fear suitcase. So
Yeah.
everything you're saying, I'm like, I think that's what I'm
No, I think that is an incredibly
okay.
powerful way to describe it and to put it into
Engage
practice.
with it
Yes, to apply it. And I'm just curious, have you found that this approach helps you
tremendously.
navigate the fear and move past it?
Tremendously and in a
Yeah.
couple of ways, because what it does for me is because sometimes I think when we talk about fear, we say fear is bad and we're try to get away from it. Like
Right.
everything that we've just said is fear is here for a reason.
Yeah.
And it can be a flag for me to go, oh, there are some things that you are not paying attention to that you should. So it
Yeah.
helps me sort out
Right. Right.
and it switches from fear to more concerns
Yeah.
that I need to get differently curious about. So
Yeah.
it helps move it into action. It
Yeah.
it helps me triage almost
Yeah.
to say
Exactly.
these are the fears that feel indeed possible that
Right.
I need to I haven't really
Yeah.
followed up on that
Yeah.
sufficiently. And instead of just going, maybe it'll go away to go, no, I'm going to sit with the itchiness of
Right.
this
Right.
and with the fear of it and read the fine print on that agreement and see if we're covered or not or whatever it
Exactly.
is.
Exactly.
And then some of it is more, I would say, it helps me pull out kind of the fake news,
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
go,
Right. Right. Right.
"Oh, that's
Right.
not even my story. I don't actually believe that. I'm
Right.
not sure where or that question is not answerable right now." It just helps
Yeah.
really unpack it and
Yeah.
go, dirty socks here,
Yeah.
clothes I wanna wear here, these need to be ironed. It sorts it out,
Yeah.
and then the sorting allows me to better let go of some things,
Right.
like these we're gonna give away or donate.
Yep.
These need some attention.
Yeah.
So it narrows down, but I do try to use fear as a signal.
Yeah. Oh, we
Um,
have to.
but then it does like as you're describing it, it's almost like I'm receiving it from BLA
Right.
and opening it up from the free prefrontal cortex to
Exactly.
say, let's now that we can get the whole brain online
Right.
and use a larger set of information.
Exactly.
Um, it yeah. So it resonates with me personally
Yeah.
what you just said about that, and
Yeah.
that is the tool, um,
Even as
that I use there.
even if the end of the unpacking, maybe you're not exactly left satisfied or have a clear plan of
You're
action.
definitely not as activated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That process alone, incidentally almost,
Yeah.
has quieted the amygdala and allowed you, in many ways,
To just catch your breath a little bit.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think of it as in my mind, I say you got to take a beat. Just take a beat.
Oh,
Right. So stimulants, for example, in kids and adults with ADHD, what they do really more than anything else is they buy you just a little sliver of time
mm.
between your thoughts and impulses and your actions.
So let's pause right there.
Yeah.
And I just said pause, and that's actually what I wanna talk about.
Yeah.
I'll make sure you get one. I may
Okay.
have showed it to you, but we
Okay.
have made little pause buttons.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
Yeah.
and this is exactly
Like an easy button.
so I don't
Wha-
remember who even
wha-
said it, but the space
yes.
between, stimulus and response
You got it.
is
You
a
got it.
is a choice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so this language around our goal really
Right.
is how do we respond, not react.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so all that you're describing today is so we are wired to do both of those things.
Yes. But one comes first, right? Reaction comes first.
Reaction would come first. So
In terms of how the brain is
right.
processing information and signaling.
So somehow we have to get
Right.
And this is maybe you have a tip on this
Yeah.
because sometimes it feels like it's all moving too fast. You
Yeah.
can't get in there enough to give it space because I
Right.
think what we know is, oh my gosh, you just said something that activated me
Yeah.
on a best day
Yeah.
when I'm well rested
Right.
and I'm,
That
you
would be
know,
hard.
I would,
Yeah.
it would be hard, but
Yeah.
I would feel activated
Mhm.
and I would say, I need a minute. And
Yeah.
I'd go walk around the building and I'd get a glass of water and I'd come back and I could respond.
Yeah.
But there are other days where just whatever the conditions are, and maybe to your example earlier, is the real estate is just
You got it.
is occupied.
Yeah.
Like I think of sometimes feeling like a saturated sponge from the bottom of the sink. It
Right.
can't hold anything else.
Exactly.
So when it's saturated,
It'll.
it can hold no, it's going to receive and absorb no more impulses to filter. It just like,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Because you know, in our modern worlds, although we don't face the same imminent threats to life and limb as our ancestors did, we face all sorts of stressors
and
and
probably the
challenges.
volume and
Yes,
information so odd when
constant.
I think about the volume of information.
Yeah,
So if it's true
yeah,
that our brains only have, so much they can absorb at once,
right.
and we are filling it all
Yeah,
day long.
yeah,
So some of it may be a tool is just being thoughtful
yeah,
about what we let in.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
I mean, these are all things that we talk about
right,
regularly
right.
is being mindful of social media,
Yeah,
scroll or doom scrolling or whatever, but
yeah,
that all of that is pouring in
yeah,
to the
yeah.
sponge.
It takes practice. It really does. And so sometimes that practice is best with a trainer, right? With a therapist who can give you and help you
Some
acquire the
tools.
tools and help you exercise those tools until they become really effective at regulating your own experiences and emotions. And I'll just take a moment there to
Yeah.
make sure that everyone is clear that I think that the amygdala and its component parts and fear and reward are absolutely essential to life.
Yep.
And in no way would I ever want those things to go away. What
Right.
what what we need is to be able to better manage those things,
Right.
right? And so this brings me to kind of another thing I wanted to share, and it really is the and.
Yeah.
So the very many of the same circuits that we can use in the way that we've discussed to regulate and control our fears, right, can be actually in a way hijacked to further generate fear. And this ties back into what we described
Yes.
very early on in the podcast, which is that third level of fear learning is just through instruction,
Mm.
right? So our brains are capable of representing experiences that we don't have directly.
Mm.
So they can empathy, right?
Yeah. Imagination.
Imagination. You got it. So for some people, they get hung up on the negatives, right?
Yeah.
So something happened this morning. Maybe someone honked at me because I went to take a right and
Right.
the light was red. Whatever, right? Something relatively trivial when you look back on it, but it can get you really worked up in the moment. And for some individuals, they can't break out of this ruminative or perseverative state of mind. They just keep thinking about it and keep thinking about it. And what happens, we know now, or at least we have some evidence for, is that the same many of the same areas of the prefrontal cortex that we talked about as being so important for regulating and controlling our fears can actually start sending signals to the amygdala that act as proxies for the pain or other types of aversive and noxious and horrible things that may actually happen to our bodies. And
Yikes.
that's really so I really think that is a core component of depression and perseveration, even contributes to obsessive and compulsive behaviors because what we're doing is we're taking this prefrontal cortex and the circuitry within that prefrontal cortex, and now we're unfortunately applying it in a way that makes things worse.
Right. So instead of I'm going to use tools that help settle that
Yeah,
primitive
I'm
brain
going to jack it
structure.
up
Yeah, I know.
through my thoughts.
Well, and like I said, why I'm somebody who has to be careful about
Yeah,
where because my brain is churning and it
right,
can be let
right.
me send things back down the
Yeah,
elevator
yeah,
to the
yeah,
amygdala
right. And
to
not
say,
necessarily quiet down,
oh
but
no,
hey, we
for
should
sure.
be
Like,
more concerned.
yeah, I don't think we're activated enough.
Yes,
That's why
yes,
unpacking the fear suitcase side makes me
right.
kind of tease out
Yeah,
what needs to stay here and what are we kind of, I don't
Yeah.
want to say manufacturing because it all feels real, but I am
Right.
somebody that I can imagine all the things
Yeah.
that might go wrong
Yeah.
and
It's
quickly get into,
right.
I would call it, it feels like a spiral,
Yeah.
but that must be, and it's not a down regular, or maybe it's the
Yeah.
upregulation of the
In this case, it
amygdala.
would be upregulation.
Yeah, but like
Exactly.
upregulating something that
Yeah.
so far we've been talking about trying to
You
downregulate
got it.
is
You
just,
got it.
and maybe, as we zoom out, another place where we've talked about the and between
Yeah.
things, just
Yeah.
the back and forth between all of this is a no wonder that sometimes you feel
Yeah.
like you have your foot on the brake and the gas,
Yeah.
that you're swimming in a sea of
Yeah. Totally
questions,
lost.
that you, um, yeah, feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Or sometimes, and again, I don't know if we have time to get all the way into it, but like I said, that the fear side is so big and powerful that I can't see the whole and. So we're inside and outside of it. So
Yeah.
it almost just it feels validating
Absolutely.
that if this experience of humaning
Yeah.
feels like a lot,
Yeah.
like there's a lot churning in there,
Right.
all in service to trying to do its best to keep us alive. Um,
Right. Right.
it just we have a lot of potent computing
Yes.
capability.
Yes. So, yeah, to recognize the mismatch, right? That's one of the
Yeah.
themes that I think has emerged is that our brains are in many ways mismatched for our lives,
Mm.
but that doesn't mean that we can't
Yeah.
find ways to create a better matching.
It just needs some other tools because part of
Exactly.
that, I think, the so what of that to me is
Yeah.
let's acknowledge, and we're not going to judge ourselves, but for the regular biological experience that we're having.
Right.
And then we're also going to acknowledge that perhaps our brains, as complex as they are, aren't quite dialed up tightly enough for the exact complexity that we're in right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, what is the conscious
Yeah.
then approach,
Right.
the mindful approach that goes along with that, such that letting our brains run on autopilot
Right.
on their like what is it in computers with their just like base model software
Yeah. Yeah.
is going to need some additional, probably going to come from,
Yeah.
and we can use all of it. We've said it comes top down from brain, but
Right.
there's a lot we can also do
Yeah.
with our brains and our
Yes.
bodies
Yes.
to help complement
Yeah.
the organ that is kind of, I don't know whether it's the center of it all or whether it's a piece, however you might think
Yeah.
about that, but
Right.
that's another philosophical
It is indeed.
conversation
It
for
is
another
indeed.
day.
And what does it mean? The center, as we said earlier, is the center of some big, kind of radio tower that's receiving signals.
In
Is
an
it
ecosystem.
generating the signals and sending it out?
Well, and, we're so centered on, kind of the powerfulness of the brain and
Mm.
us as an entity. And I had a conversation with a friend the other day where I was kind of nerding about gut bacteria. And I was like,
Yes.
we're just an ecosystem, even of
Yeah.
ourselves. So
Yeah.
humbled by the human
For
experience
sure. For sure.
and what it means before we wrap up, because
Yeah.
I know that you and I could talk until
Yes.
tomorrow about
Yes.
this.
Easily. Easily.
But any other um, tips or just takeaways you want to leave with us about how to human moving forward when you're
Yeah.
not here in our ear
Yeah. I would love
talking
to
about it?
share at least one more thing for now.
Yeah.
And that I think ties into being kind and
Mm,
allowing our experiences to unfold and not being too harsh to judge the nature of those experiences or feelings. And in that context, and back to this idea of taking a beat, I know right now there's a I think a well warranted move in psychiatry towards deprescribing because I do think that for many people they're on multiple psychiatric medications and they may not necessarily uh, need to be right and so I appreciate that there are situations where someone who may have benefited from a psychiatric drug may no longer be benefiting, and in which case we need to learn how to deprescribe. So, with that said, there are, in many cases, individuals who can, at least initially, create that beat, take that beat with the help of a
man.
psychiatric drug. So, the serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs like Prozac being the first of its kind. In my mind, and in the data that we've collected and others have collected, what I think SSRIs actually do is quiet pharmacologically through the chemistry the reactivity of the amygdala.
Mm.
So the volume is turned down a little bit by an SSRI.
On
But
both the threat and the reward side?
we know more about the threat.
Okay.
We know more about the threat. It doesn't seem like so. There's a, there's a symptom, a core symptom of depression called anhedonia, where you no longer find pleasure in activities that you
Right.
once really enjoyed. SSRIs don't seem to have quite as big of a signal
Mm.
there, but they can turn down the volume of the amygdala.
Okay.
And in doing so, what I think why that's important for some individuals, not everybody,
Right. Sure.
is it buys you that beat to then engage in a way that can ultimately equip you with the cognitive, the top-down resources to regulate that amygdala, even if its volume is turned back up,
Mhm.
right? But when it's up for some individuals, it really is almost impossible for them to engage in a way of thinking, of reappraising that is ultimately beneficial. They're just overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So, I
Or
look at
their amygdala, and I don't know the mechanism there, but these
yeah,
situations where it just feels like your amygdala has the volume
yeah,
turned up too high.
and you mentioned individual differences, which has kind of
Yeah.
been the core of our research for many years now. We have different volumes, right?
Just innately, because I
Yeah, oh,
would
yeah,
say I'm somebody, and I used to actually have to refer to my amygdala as Amy to like, "Amy,
yeah,
I think
yeah,
we're dialed up too high right now."
right,
But I think just in my base model
yeah,
inherited brain
right.
system, I have a very active
Yeah,
Amy.
and you know what? Good for you. You should. But ideally, you also have an equally capable and active prefrontal cortex,
Oh, nice, okay.
right? So
Well, and that's I mean, I'd like to think that's how I've figured it out
yeah,
is that can still do that. I'm like, "Great, here's another fear suitcase from
yeah,
Amy, and now we're
yeah,
gonna sit down and unpack it." But I guess it's when you feel like there's a mismatch there
exactly.
and you need
Right. And the mismatch into let's say the one of the silly analogies I've used in the past is imagine um uh driving a car, right? So let's say someone has an F1 race car for an amygdala, right? Now, if Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen or one of these F1 professional driver gets behind the wheel, they're going to be able to control that car and drive it fast and get around corners and be safe for the most part, right? So there's a matching of a very fast, a very powerful car with a very capable driver. High amygdala, high prefrontal cortex. But let's say you put a 13-year-old kid behind that car or someone who's just not a very good driver or has it's not even about their driving skill. They have no experience with this powerful machine. They're going to go right into the barriers. They're going to go right off the road and crash because there's a mismatch, right? You can, in a way that you can train to become a better driver through practice and experience, you can become better at regulating what is naturally a more powerful amygdala,
this feels so true. Yeah, I'm gonna
right?
get emotional. It feels so true to
Yeah.
me that that's what my journey has been, and I've just not had it articulated
Yeah,
that way.
but the important thing is don't and this comes back to a comment I made a while ago, which is don't blame the amygdala. Be thankful that you have a powerful amygdala. Now,
Now what do we
if it turns out that you haven't had the opportunity to develop the prefrontal cortex to manage that, right? You don't have the driving skills to keep it on the road.
then there are other tools
There are
and
other tools
right,
that you can develop.
prescriptions, other things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you can basically put in a lower octane fuel. That's what the SSRIs can potentially do. And the way stimulants essentially they alter dopamine signaling in a way that allows someone with ADHD to have just one more moment of a pause between thought and action, impulse and response. And SSRI can do that with the amygdala. And so over time, especially if you engage in regular therapy in
Yep,
developing your skills, and it could be
yep,
through yoga or
yep,
mindfulness, any
all of
kind
it.
of there's so many ways, all of
Yep.
it, I agree. The more approaches, the better. Then you could eventually basically come off the SSRI.
Yeah.
And your amygdala, as far as we know, will go back to its kind of set volume, but now you can control it better.
All I can think of right now, oh, there's somebody looking in the window.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, is our time up? Our time may be out.
We have
8 minutes.
8 minutes, but the people outside are looking at their watches. So we have expired our time here.
That's a shame.
I want to say, just as you described different states of being for people,
Right.
no shame in the brain.
No.
I guess there's no shame in this game or something like that
That's
was an
right.
old saying, but no
Yeah.
shame in the brain
Right.
is part of this journey is understanding how your unique brain
Yeah.
works.
Yep.
We haven't talked about neurodivergence. There's
Right.
a lot
Absolutely.
that is kind of anatomically probably consistent across us, and the
Yeah.
circuitry generally works the same
Yes.
and
And differently.
very differently
Yes.
across
Yes.
us. So
Yeah.
maybe part of as we close, it's just an invitation
Yeah.
to start to think about how to honor or learn more
Yeah.
about not only your own circuitry, but how your gears
Yeah.
are turned up or down,
Yes. Yeah.
and to be
To
reassured
recognize that. Yeah.
that there are tools and supports, whether it be therapy or medication or
Or
yoga or a
combinations. Yes.
combination of all the
Yes.
things
Yeah.
that this kindness,
Yeah. Right.
non-judgmentalness,
Yeah. Yeah.
this almost I am humbled by what all is possible.
Exactly. And be
Um,
open to discussing it. I think that ultimately, if you have an ally, whether it's a therapist or
Yeah.
a friend or a family member, the more the merrier, right?
right.
You can express yourself through language in a way that will naturally quell and quiet the fear and anxiety that you otherwise are feeling.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
often on this podcast, whatever and we're standing in, I will leave people with stay curious.
Yeah.
And that
Well,
feels
that's
like
good.
a piece of this too.
Yeah.
Stay curious and connected.
Yes. Yes.
And with those two, I continue to be hopeful about what we can normalize
Yeah. Absolutely.
to bring a little more ease to the effort
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes.
To be and more accepting of ourselves
Yeah.
and others. Absolutely. And maybe one day I think it'd be really fun to talk about all of these differences in anxiety and impulsivity and other aspects of
Yes.
our behavior in the context of neurodivergence and in the context of our really social lives, and how I would argue that there is lots of room for this kind of diversity in behaviors and anxiety and impulsivity in so many things that ultimately help us as a group
I
do better than we would ever do otherwise.
I love this.
Yeah. So we can
If we continue to think about us not only as an individual, but as an
exactly.
ecosystem.
That's right.
So
That's
what is our collective
yeah.
and the power of that,
Right.
right? The power of the beauty that comes from
Yes.
these different
And
ways of being and
the
brains
value.
and the
The
value.
value that someone, who may have a very focused interest, a stereotypic interest, and perhaps less socially engaged,
What they can bring.
what they can bring.
Right.
And you never know when you might need that exact type of person to solve some problem.
I love the and of that when we think about the and that is collective
Yeah.
humanity.
Right.
So there you
Right.
go. I
Yeah.
think you just invited yourself back to
Oh, well,
part
that's
two.
all I want.
I love talking to you.
It was my pleasure.
So I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
Thank you to Duke University
Yes.
for
I
allowing
know
us.
it's hard for you to say.
No, it's not. I really am not competitive that way. I'm a facilitator
Yes,
and always
absolutely.
in the and
Yes,
of
a
all the
connector.
organizations.
Yeah.
I am loyal to people, not logos,
There you go.
for the most part.
There you go.
But it has been such a
Yeah.
joy
Thank you
to
so
speak
much.
with y'all.
the
Thanks for
opportunity.
hanging in, everybody, for our pondering on neuroscience. I hope it was interesting
Yeah,
to you.
it makes sense at some level.
Yeah, can't wait. And if y'all have questions about brain stuff, I do think this is an interesting place where I can,
Yeah.
help connect, or if we do an episode 2 on those
Sure.
topics, but then if people have specific questions that
Sure.
they're curious about, it would be really fun to be able to fuel that curiosity.
I would love to be able to try
Okay.
and answer any questions
Yeah.
that the audience has.
Perfect. So y'all know how to find me. You can email us at connect@standintheand.com, and I look forward to the next conversation. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
The Stand in the And podcast is supported by Human Centered Strategy, where we help leaders and teams build connection and strategy and complexity so that everyone can flourish. To learn more or to work with us, please visit us online at humancenteredstrategy.com or message me on LinkedIn.